This roundtable is going to be about restorative justice in the legal system. David Graham works with the Albany DA's office to develop community-based restorative justice programming. Dall Agnol Maia, Brazilian attorney and law professor, is an author of Law and Restorative Justice, A Search for Overcoming Revenge. Alisha Kohn, formerly incarcerated transgender woman activist working towards prison abolition. Tamara Veal, Southern University Law Center student interested in fair and just criminal prosecution. Anthony Posada, a public defender, community, New York City. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Angel. So hi, everyone. Like Angel said, my name is Tamara Veal. I'll be a moderator for this roundtable discussion. And to kind of open it, I'd like to start with a quote. It reads, "When people collectively come together and strategize and plan, working together and acting together, they create a power that they can effectively use in their situation to affect change." And that was by Reverend Dr. James Lawson Jr. If that name rings a bell, he was a leading theoretician and tactician of nonviolence within the civil rights movement in the 60s and a major or key organizer in the Nashville sit-ins. And thinking about the late Reverend had me kind of reflecting on different lessons that I've learned over the time, probably particularly during my journey at the law school. And it's not, I would say it's not one from a particular teacher that I've had, but kind of a collection. And it's really just kind of doing the work now, planting your seeds now to feed you later, in so many words. And I would say that's something that I've really reflected on in the past 6 months, matriculating through law school, making personal life changes just for the better. I felt like been doing some hard days, putting in a lot of hard work for the past 6 months. And now I feel like I am seeing the fruits of my labor in so many words. And with that, I'd like to pass it to Mr. David Graham. If you'd like to share a lesson that you've maybe been reflecting on from an elder, and you can take it away.
Thank you. I apologize. I don't know why the sound went out, and I was really scattering. It just turned on when my name was announced. So I'm so sorry. I'm not really.
It's okay.
Sad to come right back to me. I'm just sorry.
Oh, we can, if you'd like, we can move past. We'll come back to you. Alisha, would you like to share?
Yeah, for me, it would probably be my mentor on so many levels, has introduced me to giving me a life after incarceration. I spent 10 years inside of prison, and I came home working a retail job, not really having a life, trying to adjust myself into society. And I met my mentor, Ray, who has opened up the possibilities and doors to bring my experiences forth of talking about prison abolition and what does it actually mean to live in a safer community. And so one of the lessons that they taught me was, be mindful of when and where I share my story, because sometimes that when I share my story, people may take my trauma and use it against me, or me having to talk about my experiences, and being mindful of why I'm doing this work and how to do it effectively, essentially.
I can't remember in the circle. I think it was Anthony is after you, I believe. If you'd like to pass it, if you're done speaking, I'd like to pass it to Anthony.
Yeah. Anthony.
Thank you, Alisha. For me, I gravitate to the teachings of that I saw growing up from my grandmother, and lately, and for a good amount of time in these last couple months, I've been sitting with the values that my grandmother instilled in me, seeing the kind of life that my family was living at the time, with the presence of the mass incarceration reality very much influencing what our life looked like back then, didn't stop her, didn't work to prevent her from having strength, having faith, having belief in persevering. And a lot of those things I picked up. I was sort of drawn to those things, and I think about them lately, and I think about how having that same sort of courage, that resilience, being grounded in gratitude and compassionate, and trying to live by those values are things that I have been reflecting on lately, and they inform my work, and I seek to model those for other people as well. And I've been sitting with them really as of late, because I sometimes feel or experience in this work how the systems that are in place don't perpetuate that. They don't live by that. They are actually trying to do the opposite of grounding in being compassionate. And so knowing that I can be there to represent or be part of those values that I want to see, I know that I'm not alone in doing that, and that there's other people also putting that forward. And so it's like we're collectively working towards that. And those are the things that I've been reflecting on as of late. So with that, I'll pass it to Diego.
Hello, thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for my English. It's not a good English, but I will try my best in this talk with you. So an important lesson I learned is from my professor, Johanna Turner, from Eastern Mennonite University. She taught me that diverse views about restorative justice converging the building or rebuilding relationships. So in society like Brazil or United States with a slavery past, there is so much structural and cultural violence that our relationships with each other suffer damage all the time. When we establish space for talking, exchanging stories, reflecting on the past, exposing our needs, I understand we will be building relationships and so working against the structural and cultural violence that generates oppression. That's my personal opinion. Thank you, and I pass for Tamara.
Thank you, Diego. Mr. Graham, we'll come back to you. I hope all the audio is set up. I didn't want to put you on the spot like that.
No, that's good. Thank you so much. It was kind of weird, but we're good now.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you. I had a coach back when I was in high school. I was running track, and he taught me something that to this day, I reflect on and really think about. And a little backstory was I was I couldn't make any of the sports teams that I was interested in. And someone told me, if you go out for the track and field team, they won't cut anybody. They keep everybody. So I was like, hey, I'm in, So it was just like a belonging thing. Like most high schoolers and teenagers and ninth graders want to find some sort of a clique or a group or circle to identify with. And I quickly got discouraged because I realized I wasn't good at any of the track or field events that they had. You know, they figured out of all of them something you could be good at, and I was getting really discouraged because yeah, this just isn't working out. You know, and this coach, he looked at me and he said, you know what, you got some really long legs. And I was like, well, yeah, I know. Too bad they can't run or jump, but yeah, they were very long. And he said, no, I'm going to train you to be a hurdler. And long story short, I went from the worst guy on the team to, you know, breaking school records and becoming like a star, not overnight, actually in a few years, it took like 2 or 3 years, but I stuck with it. But he taught me something is really to identify what a strength that you have, even if it's something like long legs, you know, and build around it. We're also familiar with everything that's going wrong with our society, with ourselves, and we're just so familiar, we're experts on all that, but we need to really pause and take a break from that and really focus on what actually is working, what's good, what can we build with. And I've found that something that I've been building upon even now when we watch a lot of things really go south in many aspects, but able to still find things that are not, that things that are really going well, people that are doing awesome things, kids that are resilient and doing some great things, and really just reflecting on and highlighting it. I found that that's really been a strength in me. And it's funny because I was in a meeting where a elderly woman, it was a community meeting, and we were all kind of getting into a griping session on what's wrong with our neighborhood and the money that we don't have. And she just abruptly stopped everybody. Said, no, 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 we're not going to do this. She goes, we have something. We have power. We have people power. We're all here. And there's power in this room. And it just changed all the energy. And next, you know, we identified strengths and resources in our community and pulled them together and pulled off some pretty crazy, feats in the midst of chaos. And we look back and say, wow, look what we were able to accomplish. But it was because this woman stopped and said, whoa, 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 whoa. No, we're not going to go there. We're going to identify our strengths and what we have. So yeah, I'll pass it to, is it Angela? Angela?
Angela, are you going to join us? No, I don't think so. Maybe not. But thank you. That was beautiful. It actually kind of jogs my memory when thinking about a time when I felt like I've seen a breakthrough with restorative justice. I think we could probably all think of a time or a story that maybe we felt that this is it, restorative justice is, starting to crack the egg of the shell. And something that I think about is this past summer, I was able to co-teach with Shaylee a restorative justice training with some of the Southern University department heads. And this training was roughly a week, but within that week, I felt like everyone that was part of it had a complete 180 change with restorative justice. They, took it full hands on board and were ready to just go forward with it in their different department heads. I remember specifically there was a lady who was over the Southern University security, and she was towards the end of the training, she was discussing how she would like to implement that with the other security guards and personnel for the campus. Particularly, she was talking about dealing with students who may have some issues on campus, and instead of just writing them off with fines or even a dismissal from the college, she was looking at restorative justice as another way to address those issues. And, that made my heart glow. Another department head was over the dormitories, I believe, at the campus. And he was discussing how restorative justice could help with roommate discrepancies, or even like the whole hall floor discrepant, if there's any issues going on. And hearing that, I was like, wow, I love to see it. I feel oftentimes maybe restorative justice is looked at just for the legal system when it can be used in different areas of life and just in the community. So hearing his take and hearing even further, he was looking at concrete steps to implement it in his dorm. Felt like it was a great breakthrough. And there were two other gentlemen. I can't remember exactly what department head they were over, but they were both discussing how they could implement restorative justice with the incoming freshmen for this fall semester, and welcoming them on campus, and fostering or knitting a closer relationship with the student body, kind of breaking down those labels, I think that we had discussed in the first panel, and just allowing department heads and students to be able to come together and resolve issues without almost like a hierarchy or a power discrepancy between the two. Students can feel welcome to come to their faculty members and discuss, hey, I'm having this issue, and it's not, there's not a tension between them. And, faculty members can probably speak to students and maybe get their point across a bit clearer through these different practices. So kind of all in all summation, I felt like that training, I saw a great breakthrough with restorative justice and seeing it being implemented in my community. And that really was kind of heart touching for me. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Mr. Graham, if you would like to share a story where you felt or you saw, or maybe you yourself felt like you had a breakthrough with restorative justice.
Yes, thank you. Yes, there was an individual we have a felony youth diversion program here at the Albany County District Attorney's Office, where we use restorative justice to resolve cases, and community members are trained in restorative justice to be the facilitators. And we also have a community volunteer board that looks at cases and sort of screens them and votes on what cases they would think would be appropriate for this program through the DA's office. And we had an individual who just wasn't doing what he needed to do to repair the harm to the community and right his wrong, the opportunity he was given. And we brought him back before the initial board that really kind of voted him in, and they usually do that to kind of figure out what's going on, why isn't this working out, and we want to help understand, and they can also send your case back to traditional prosecution. So I sometimes call it the hot seat. And so he was brought back to the hot seat, and for not really doing or complying, doing what he needed to do, what he agreed to do to repair the harm for his case. And he basically just said, listen, he was up front and told us some of the personal things he was going through. I believe he even lost a child. His girlfriend was pregnant and he lost a child, and he just kind of spiraled downward and just kind of lost motivation to even try anything in his life. And he was, basically asking for another chance, and he's gonna, turn it around. And so we were like, great, let's figure out what we can do to support you in this program. And we identified a resource in our community that really we could send him. It had housing. It really would put him in an environment to get him where he needs to go. And he got signed in. He got put into that program, and that program had some turnover issues, whereas the person who was communicating with us about him in the program was no longer there and didn't pass on anything to the next person. So we had to kind of do some digging and figure out, how is our kid still alive in there? Like, what's going on in this program? And long story short, we reached the director of admissions, and he said, "Who is the kid in your program?" And we told him the name, and he could not believe what he was hearing, because he was like, he's in a felony diversion program. He is like the model student here. He's like, we don't even want to graduate him. We want to make him like a teacher's assistant, because he's just such an awesome person, his drive, and he literally turned it all around to the point where people would jaw drop when they realized why he was sent there, or what the circumstances kind of led him there. And his energy was so motivational that other students picked up on it and followed suit. And that's why they were like, wow, this kid is different. But it was all, you know, it started with him going down the wrong road. But seeing that this process was able to be patient and try to figure out something instead of being quick to punish or be punitive, you know, threatening, like, you know, what can happen to you, but it was more like what's going on, what can this community do to support you, and see it happen. And it was like it was like one of our first cases in the program. It's 5 years old now, this particular program. So he's one of the first ones coming through it. So we were kind of building the program as it goes too, because we didn't have much of a template. And so, but that was one time where I said, wow, this is awesome, man. This is really awesome. And then he ended up graduating from the program, had all his charges dropped, and great success story. But yeah, it was a definite breakthrough. I'm gonna pass it to Alisha. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So like I see, like, you know, so restorative justice is like, we can think about it in the traditional model, right? We can think about like holding circles and circle keeping and real intentional spaces. But I am here today within the restorative process because I've seen it work inside prison. Not a formal circle, not, you know, none of thing, but solving problems between community members inside of prison, whether it's using of the shower, the using of the stove, the using of a TV, the different things, the way the economic system works in there. And it's really coming together because as prisoners, there's this understanding and realization that what happens to one of us happens to all of us. If there's a fight inside of a dorm over, or the cell block over the microwave, over so like whatever situation it may be, the whole block gets shut down, and everybody in the block has to get their stuff searched and stripped and all of this. So I've seen it where street family members from different street families would come together and solve issues like what is, you know, like how, okay, I'll use the microwave from 5 to 6, you can use it after, then tomorrow you can use it first, like, you know, really coming together to solve a solution without the assistance of cops, without the assistance of sheriffs, the court system, or anything like that, but coming together because of the realization of like what happens to one of us happens to all of us, no matter what. I was a trans woman inside of a man's prison. I was not on the top of the list of the hierarchy of prison, but at the end of the day, there was a certain level of respect, regardless of what I did or who I was, about coming to agreements. And when things are talked out, and I've seen it happen tons of times, it creates the prison safer, right? It creates this space where people can actually learn and grow, where people develop programs from prison. Like there's so many prison-based programming, go to college. You know, it's an amazing opportunity when you create space with people. And that's what restorative justice is creating space for people. And when I got introduced to the restorative center, I was like, I saw this in prison, and now I have words for it, right? And now I have words of exactly what the restorative center is doing and what the mission of restorative justice is, you know, because I've seen it in action without any words, and now I have language to put it. Now I can know, oh, that was restorative justice, right? And so even happens without any type of formal training or like formal space of the setting. Yeah, and I will pass it to Anthony.
So for me, a breakthrough happened in a community building circle. So it wasn't a circle that was performing a function of, let's say, the criminal justice system or helping somebody resolve a case, or in a school setting. It was part of a community organization's interest in wanting to provide an alternative experience to their participants. And I remember it very clearly because I was sort of doing some of the shadow work that comes along with being a circle keeper, and the training was being held in the Bronx. The participants of the organization were youth, young people working to get back on their feet, to re-enter society. Some of them were working on their resumes and developing opportunities to land jobs. And at first, when I started setting up the space, I remember very clearly, and this has happened other times as well, where when they were coming into the room and they saw the altar, kind of like, you know, the circle with the candle and the water and the different elements being put out, they're like, oh, what is this? Are we doing voodoo today? Or like, are we doing some sort of some witchcraft happening here? And seeing their reactions to it, and then them sitting down and us going through the actual process of the circle, I was so blown away and completely reminded the way this has happened in many other circles that I've sat, where it's like, and this goes back to something that Alisha was saying, it's about holding that space. It really was about holding that space, and so much of that wasn't even something that I was doing. It was really just the result of us going through the different stages of the circle, and to see the way that the group was after we completed the circle, from how they started, from their sort of skepticism about what they were about to get into, to what they had just shared with each other, and sort of the connections that they had built with one another, just always never fails to give me sort of that understanding of like, wow, that this power is really residing within all of us, and it's really about how holding this space is able to bring it forward and help it manifest. And so it definitely manifested that day for me in that circle, and it always has. And so those are the moments that I consider like breakthroughs that I cherish whenever there's an opportunity to hold space in a circle. So I'll pass it off to Diego.
Thank you, Anthony. So in the first moment, I think about my experiencing with an attorney. But after listening Ada and Ray in the first panel, I felt inspired with the message for the law student. And I think about this point. And I want to share my experience in the law school with a professor. I want to share the restorative justice advancement in the law student education, because today, step by step, little by little, I can see university introducing here in Brazil restorative justice as a post-graduation programs, or even a subject to study in the law school. It's very good for us because it's changing the mind of the new attorneys, prosecutors, or judges for the futures. The effect for us is promising because, for example, I have students today who are playing a leading role and building a safe space in the new university where I'm working, and who have been assessed us since the first years of the law school, the action and the work to fight against the racism, domestic violence, and the LGBTQ minority, fight against this oppression and the violence against this minority, using the space to talk, to express the needs, using the circle process. And for me, this is a very special moment because we don't have this in the other universities. For me, this is the big challenge, change the view for the university, create a new space and new visions for the future and for these professionals like judges, attorneys, and prosecutors. Thank you, and I pass for Tamara.
Thank you, Diego. Those were all amazing. I loved hearing Alisha. I think, so my first introduction to restorative justice is with TRC. And I know me personally, I tend to kind of get bogged down with the structure of restorative justice. I'm a big structure person. I like things that, have an order and a place. But hearing your story about how you can reflect on it when you were in prison, and at that time, you said you didn't have like the words for it. Is that what you were saying earlier? Like it was there, but you didn't have like a way to describe it. It made me kind of reflect on restorative justice. It works, and it's not a hard thing to implement. Maybe sometimes with our own thoughts and ideas of what it should be or what it can be or how we want it to be can kind of bog us down. But really, how kind of you were saying, it's a great way to problem solve and an easy way to connect with people and get things done. And so I just kind of wanted to reflect on that. I don't know if anybody else, David, was there a story that you kind of piqued your interest? Oh, wait, you're muted.
Yes, sorry, could you just repeat it real quick?
Oh, I was just saying, hearing Alisha's story, it really kind of honed in back to the core of restorative justice and how I feel like it's something, if you just kind of let it flow, it'll work its way out with issues that you want to resolve. So I was saying, was there any other kind of story that you heard with us that you might have resonated with? Or
Oh, wow. Yeah. And it leads to a lot of what I want to talk about restorative justice and how it brings a meaningful connection between individuals that probably would not, well, the connection that they had prior was not positive. And so to see that a positive connection comes out of the restorative process in this restorative space, where people now, like Alisha had said, that what happens to one happens to all of us. So we're connected. Before we were in different groups, and we're identifying with our differences, and sometimes even act out to defend or just make our differences distinct. Now all that kind of goes out the window. We're together, and I think that's one of the biggest powers. What I see in this realm and world of restorative justice is the connections and the power that comes with the connections.
you want to pass it to Alisha?
Yes, I'll pass it to Alisha now.
Yeah, I would say, like Mr. Green, when you're telling your story about like how you and this program fought for that person, it's, and I see it every day with my current job and everything like that, of where there's not a lot of DAs who will do that, who will go out of their way to fight and to be like, okay, no, there's another way, instead of just sentencing, and sending a person life, and the person turned out to be like, and a success story, for the lack of better words. And so hearing that, right, and hearing that like you're involved in this panel of like, DAs all across the country should be in this space, right? And because when we think about restorative justice, it's a culture shift. This isn't like, oh, we have circles, now all the problems are solved. It becomes this culture shift of like, people deserve a second chance. People deserve to repair that harm without having to lose years of their life. And so your story hit me, because we don't hear stories that often about that. We don't hear stories about a DA willing to fight, for this, right? And, to fight for an individual. We don't hear those stories very often. We always hear the opposite. We always hear the negative aspects. And so it's becoming, it is a culture shift of how, like, you know, you're on a panel this year, and, you know, maybe we'll have a whole DA panel next year, and the possibilities of just having our different intersects in the different spaces that, you know, we work in, to come together to spread this awareness of, like, no, we need to hold space for each other. We need to give each other a second chance, and we can't just cancel each other out because of one mistake of their life. So yeah, so I'll pass it to Anthony.
Thanks, Alisha. I also resonated with what David shared at the beginning, which was about sharing, you know, how it was possible to start focusing on the good things that were happening, and how much of a change that made. And I connect that back to that value of reflecting on gratitude and gratefulness. And I saw that happening in that circle that I was sharing about, where to some extent, right, I think there was some ambivalence to the experience happening, or some, I think, disbelief in the participants themselves. Perhaps some people were saying, like, well, this is, who knows what's about to happen. We know our program participants, and they're very rough around the edges, and who knows if this is something that they want to be a part of, and to know how much they enjoyed and felt comfortable with the ability to just open up about things that were not being talked about before, really, again, honed in on me that holding space is of prime importance, and being able to have those moments to make those connections. And so it again, it hits me, and it hits close to home. And because before, for me, I also grew up with my own father incarcerated, and not being able to have spaces where I could have an opportunity to either not just share my story, but to find connections with other people who were going through similar things, and to understand in that knowing that I wasn't alone, and there were many others going through this, and that we could build from that. That was very powerful for me. And so it brings to me the priority of making sure that we have these spaces happening, and that restorative justice is available for people. So I'll pass it on to Diego.
Thank you, Anthony. Tamara, I'm sorry, but I think I don't understood what is the reflection for do now. Can you repeat me for me, please?
Mm-hmm. So I was just saying, you know, were there any, from all the breakthrough stories that we had all shared, was there any one that, you know, may have piqued your interest, or something that you'd like to reflect on?
Alguma coisa do que as outras pessoas falaram que você gostaria de refletir sobre, que te tocou de alguma forma?
Oh, for me, the sorry, because my wife is helping me here. Sometimes I don't understand, but I'm sorry because my English. Vou tentar aqui.
Okay.
I will try express myself here. I listen, I pay attention what Alisha said about the shift of the values of the society, and this touched me because it's the point of my research about restorative justice. I believe in this, like restorative justice is not about the practice. It's not about only 2 circles or conference. It's about a new vision about how we live together in this world. We have just one home, it's Earth. In this world, Earth, we need to learn, live together. So for me, restorative justice is like, listen the first panel. We need connect again with the Mother Earth. We need to connect together. We need to live together. So when Alisha said, David said, Anthony said, we need to connect. For me, this makes sense. and touched me. And the histories about the incarceration and the other problems, I felt the same problems here in Brazil. We have the similar past here because the slavery past, and I think this problems is very similar here. So this is my personal opinion, and I'm sorry for distraction in the reflection. Sorry. Thank you.
Fine,
And I pass for Tamara.
You're okay. And so kind of, when we were talking about the different breakthroughs, what were some obstacles? I kind of felt like in all our breakthrough stories, maybe we were kind of working around the different obstacles that we may have seen when we were having our breakthroughs. And so I know for me, I guess an obstacle that I feel like restorative justice has faced or is going to face, I feel like it's like the onboarding process of it. I think explaining restorative justice and getting other people that maybe are new to it to grasp the concept of it. I think, in my time of trying to implement different restorative justice practices in Baton Rouge, that was a struggle that I was faced with Southern University, the Law Center itself, and reaching out to different community organizations, was explaining them kind of the process or the vision that I see with it. And they're trying to, I guess maybe marry it to what they know and how they problem solve. I'm trying to think of an instance. I was meeting with, I think, the student body president at Southern University Law Center, and I was having a difficult time just explaining the idea of restorative justice or how I was trying to implement restorative justice. And that was, I felt like, always a big obstacle for me to kind of get people the onboarding process of coming on board with it. And so I'll pass it to Mr. Graham. We're there as a DA, and I'm sure you met some pretty big obstacles with implementing restorative justice.
Well, yes. Just to really tag along with what you said is people's wrapping their head around the concept. We are so ingrained in, as someone once said, we're comfortable with failure. We know something doesn't work, but we're very comfortable with it because we're used to it. And here we are offering a alternative solution. It doesn't sound the same method. So people are like, what are you doing? What is this? When I first started 5 years ago, I believe a college from Missouri called me, reached out to me and said, hey, we want to learn about your program. We just read about it somewhere, and I had just started. So I said, well, let me get the district attorney who actually started the program. I'm still learning. I'm kind of new here too. And I set up a phone interview, and I took notes as well because I wanted to learn because it was very intriguing to me. And that's exactly what the DA said, was getting people within the court system, judges, law enforcement, everybody just onboarding. They just couldn't wrap their head around this, concept of like, wait a minute, like we just can't. And that's the biggest obstacle I see. Even in one of the early trainings that I took place, I was participating in. There was a video the organization showed, and it showed a gentleman whose daughter was touched inappropriately in a school setting, and they presented how they were wanted to handle it with restorative justice, and this guy almost lost it. He was like, whoa, what? You're gonna like he was about to explode, and he literally said himself, after he finally kind of understood it and went through the process, at the end of it, he's making the commercial for restorative justice. He even said out of his own mouth, he says, this is a tool that even God could use to change people's lives. And the guy was like preaching. He was like on board. But, prior to the restorative justice, this guy was ready to kill someone for even bringing up the option of restorative. What? I'm going to restore somebody. All right. Let me get my hands on. So to see that was like, wow, like that. And that was in a school setting. And so that was good to see that video in the beginning of our training, because it helped people that couldn't wrap their heads around it, even being trained, to kind of see others that were like, this makes no sense, but now they fully, they understand, they see the light now. So yeah, I think that I agree. And I'll pass it on to Alisha.
So kind of like what I was saying before about it being a culture shift and how that we can't say, okay, we're going to take the court system and we're going to use restorative justice, right? That would be great, right? That would just, right? But that is not a reality, right? Not a reality yet. In the future, it may be. And I remember when I heard Dr. Angela Davis speak at Beyond the Bars conference at Columbia University. And listening to her, to sum it up, she says that, it's not our responsibility to be in this space of, it's not a responsibility to think what is going to happen 100 years from now, in a very relative sense. And as this generation and our different ages and things like that, but like as our job is to get to the next generation, right? To create the space, right? To create the opportunity for people to heal, because that's what restorative justice is, right? It's about holding space and beginning to heal. Over early fall, I was on a lovely restorative justice retreat. And I was talking to Shaylee about an idea about a program that I could do within restorative justice, right? I was holding circles, but I felt like I wasn't really implementing and using within my capacity restorative justice in all different ways. And we've started to develop a project that is definitely you'll be hearing a lot about it next year, 2022, about holding space for the loved ones who are incarcerated, right? For my husband's incarcerated for 28 years now, knock on wood, everything, hopefully he comes home in 2 years, but he has 30 to life. And for a crime that he committed when he was 16 years old. And not only have been incarcerated myself, but having a loved one incarcerated and knowing that what my mother had to go through coming to see me, my little brother, who I don't even talk to anymore, has broken those ties of family connections, and the harassment, the often working. My mom was a single mother, working 2 jobs, right? And, and providing. And that story is so common with the loved ones who are incarcerated. And so part of this project is opening that space, right? The space of healing for the loved ones who are incarcerated. And opening up avenues, right? Opening up avenues for individuals who are formerly incarcerated, opening up avenues for to holding circles inside of prison, holding circles for victims in the space, right? Survivors of harm that has been caused for communities, and reimagining the ideas of when the thing that's going to happen tomorrow can be prevented by holding that space and start to healing as a community before we even reach that point where it's not, well, let's call the cops. Maybe it's someone stealing food because they're hungry. They're stealing money to pay their rent. They're doing illegal activity to do those things, because we know majority of people who are incarcerated in the United States come from crimes of poverty. And, and looking at that and understanding that is that if we can heal, because we've been harmed by this system, right? We've been harmed by this white supremacist system so much in many different ways, right? More when it comes to Black and brown folks, they've been harmed the most, right? I'm a white transgender woman. I've been through my experiences, but I can tell you my experiences in prison was not as half as bad as my sisters, right? Black trans women who are incarcerated with me. And that is a real reality in America. And holding that space, right? Holding this space of healing into many different communities and focusing on the people who are harmed by this carceral system and creating that space. So when things happen, or if different avenues can change the way that things happen, things can't really change until we heal as a community. So creating that space of healing, you know, and it's not going to be easy. It's not something I can, you know, we snap our fingers. It's here. It's a process, and it's a long process, and it's a continued process for the next generation, so we can live in that radical imagination world. And with that, I'll pass it to Anthony.
Thank you, Alisha. So much of what you shared are things that I also consider to be the main obstacles, and the thread that I see running through so far that I've encountered many times is just knowing that we live in a society that has, for decades now, accepted cages as solutions, that has prioritized punishment, that has insisted on these structures being set as a way to get what they see as justice, whether that's in the form of mandatory minimums, whether that's punishing people for what they put into their bodies, as opposed to conceiving of treatment and health services. It's also all the power that has been built throughout those years into those institutions, and all the money that flows into them. So whether it's the correctional system, whether it's the policing system, all of those areas where, as a society, finances and opportunities have been prioritized for those areas. And that really translates to power. Like, there's a lot of power that's been there, and to have restorative justice start to gradually be in those spaces, the biggest obstacles I see are that power in those places is not going to be willing to give up that power, to just say, oh, well, we're going to accept that people can be transformed, and that there can be growth, and that we don't need all of these mechanisms to get there. That's going to be, as you were saying, Alisha, a cultural change. It's going to require a mindset change. It's going to require having more of that radical imagination, and more communication about what it is that restorative justice offers and what it is about. And I know for myself, similarly as others have shared, trying to share with other people what restorative justice is about, is something that I sometimes words aren't enough, and it isn't until somebody sits in a circle or is part of the experience themselves that they kind of have the aha moment, and they're like, oh, this is what it does. Those are among the things that I can see as areas that restorative justice is going to run into resistance, but that can be and are being chipped away from many practitioners and people working in the field, and other states who are beginning to adopt the model. But it will be something that will take time, and it requires the work of all of us, sort of putting in the circles, holding the spaces, staying true to the principles of what restorative justice stands for. And it's a fight that I'm very much willing to take on, because we can't continue living with the way that the systems of mass incarceration, the system of policing are currently used and deployed and the harms that they bring about, which is more harms than actual benefits to the communities. So with that, I'll pass it off to Diego.
Thank you, Anthony. So for me, I think the biggest challenge or obstacle today here in Brazil for restorative justice is maintaining the integrity. Is why I say this, because in my research, I find some points and mentioning these points in a few words for us here understand. I say that restorative justice has eased the state's oppression suffered by the minorities, especially in exercises to the power to shape behaviors in incarcerated people. For this reason, when it's related to the justice system, like me, I work like an attorney, and restorative justice must take care to not lose its essence, and start be guided by the interest of the states for the power of the majority. When this happened, like now in Brazil, we can see this happen. Unfortunately, this happened in our context here. It's lose the community power or potential of the community potential, and starts reproduce the interest of the states and reproducing to the vision of the power and reproduce the cultural and the structural privileges. So someone who, like me, white guy, who have a good work, master degree, always will have privilege, and the privilege and the people in minority will feel the oppression. If we don't change this space, don't create, don't expand the space to dialogue and understand the needs for separate this harm, structural harm, we will see the future change. And I believe this potential of the restorative justice is the community power, not this state power. This is my opinion. And I pass for Tamara.
Thank you, Diego. So hearing everyone's different obstacles that we'd see, I'd like to know, how would you define restorative justice, or what is what does restorative justice mean to you? And so for me personally, I do see restorative justice as a tool, or I guess the best way to say it would be like a tool to allow people, and I feel like we've all kind of said it throughout this panel discussion, it's a way to connect with people. And I guess more specifically, a way to connect without the different societal labels that we all kind of just take on. And maybe, intentionally or unintentionally, everyone kind of takes on a label in society and how we fit and how we work together. But I feel like restorative justice allows us to kind of remove those or lift those off of us and other people, and we can just connect with the person, the person that we're sitting with, the person that we're next to. It allows us to kind of think of a way to, like, a more human, I guess, connection, without thinking, I'm talking to this person and they're this, I'm just talking to Alisha, I'm talking to, Anthony, I'm not talking to, what other labels or how we connect in society more. It's just, as we say, kind of a person to person. And so I'd like to hear what you all say is restorative justice, or define it, what it means to you. And I'll pass it to David.
Thank you, Tammy. Restorative justice means an array of things to me, but I'll start by saying it is progress. It is a solution. It is also education. It has the ability to teach us so much. It is also power. People can embrace problems it gives people the power to embrace, I say it as a conflicts and problems, versus fear them or run away from them. So I look at it as like a superpower, really, in a nutshell. I mean, I could really expound more and more, but I guess I'll leave it there and pass it on to Alisha.
Yeah, to me, restorative justice is, healing justice. Similar to like what I was talking about earlier, is like providing the space. I'm a baseball fan, and one of my favorite baseball movies is A Field of Dreams. And there's a famous quote in there, if you build it, they will come, right? And it's, providing the space begins the process of healing, whether it's being trained to be an official circle keeper, whether it's a community circle, whether it's a criminal justice circle, like whatever type of circle it is, there is a space of healing, right? There's a space of healing and how, and the practices that be handed down to what, we call the restorative process today was just about sharing stories, was just about holding space for each other. And talking about our needs, our wants, and to talking to each other like humans, like individuals, like the person, not based off the job or any other thing, right? Job, race, gender identity, and understanding that we're all healing together. We're all, so yeah, when it comes down to it, restorative justice is healing justice. And I will pass it to Anthony.
Thanks, Alisha. Restorative justice means for me collective transformation that fosters growth, grounded in our individual experiences with our shared reality. So, I mean, those are the things that I have witnessed whenever I've been in circles or I've seen restorative justice taking place. I've seen, and I myself felt that transformation that was motivating that growth in all of the people involved. And it happened as a result of sort of, right, people being able to share their experience and noticing after that exercise how much in common we all shared, how much there was to say about each other that before we were just looking at ourselves as being separated, but realizing how connected we actually were. So with that, I'll pass it to Diego.
Thank you, Anthony. So restorative justice means for me something beyond the practice. For me, I understand restorative justice as one among many others theories of justice. I like theories of justice. It's my favorite studies is about John Rawls, Greek theories, and I try organizing restorative justice with these theories, and I believe this can be possible. And the restorative justice for me is an ideal that we seek to stabilize social and coexistence, structure and organize our society. Why? Because restorative justice have potential for open to expand dialogue, and we need this. We live in democracy. So what's the point for democracy? Dialogue, but not dialogue only for the people who have privileges. Like, so sorry for the sincerity. Like in Brazil, I know maybe in the United States, I'm a Latin, but here in Brazil, people see me white guy. So that's why when I see look for me, I call myself a white guy. Here in Brazil, I have privilege to talk, privilege to teach people. So space for dialogue is different for the Black people here. White guy have more power. Why this happened? Because the space is different. And then when we study restorative justice, for me, we can reconstruct this space. We can try find this real democracy where the people will have a real dialogue, a real power to express their needs. So this is my ideal. I know, like Alisha said, it's not real. I don't know if this can be possible, but we will try. I'm trying. All the day, step by step, I'm trying with my students. So in my view, restorative justice is possible, but we do this through 3 principles. This can be possible, but we need to have pay attention, take care the integrity with three principles: respect, accountability, and relationship. If we care these principles, I believe we have a chance to change the lens, like Howard Zerr tries saying in his book. We can try change the lens about our society. We can try reorganize the scheme of the society, not only the North American, but South American, South Africa, and the European nations. Why? Because we will try see we like a human family, a community, when a planetary human family. For me, this makes sense, but we know when we are in the space of dialogue, we have a different views. This is my point. Thank you, Tamara, and I pass the talk piece.
Diego. Those were all wonderful definitions. Anthony, yours kind of, when you were speaking, kind of jogged my thought process when thinking about restorative justice. And I guess in addition to, adding on to my definition of just kind of a tool to really connect with people on a one-on-one basis, I was thinking of restorative justice as also a way to allow both sides to come together and become whole. Similar to how Diego was saying, we're all on one earth, we're sharing the earth, we need to get along. I feel like restorative justice allows that kind of as a pathway for both sides, whether, you've been right or wrong. It allows both sides to, I feel, truly get or truly receive what you really want out of, a problem-solving situation. Oftentimes I feel like maybe with the legal system, one person kind of wins and, the other person kind of, has a negative side, versus restorative justice, I think it allows both people to work together and really get to the root of how they want to become whole again and become a part of society, not just in society, I guess is a way to say it, but you're part of it. You're not, how would I say it? I guess it's more of like a circle within a circle. I feel like kind of how it is now, when you are reintegrated back into society, you're a circle within the circle as opposed to just forming with it. I don't know if that really, makes sense, but that's, I guess, how I see restorative justice is it allows you to not be an outcast, to really come back and work together as one. So thank you, Antonio, for kind of bringing that to my mind. I don't know if David, was there anything that you heard that kind of jogged you, or if you want to expound? I know you said last time, you kind of in so many words, you wanted to keep it short, but I'd love to hear kind of a bigger definition of what you were thinking of restorative justice.
Definitely. And I say superpower at the end because it is a tool and it is powerful. And like any tool that is powerful, once you understand the power of the tool and how to utilize it and implement it, you have a level of confidence with it. I love to bring up this story of a local organization trained peer mediators within the high school to resolve issues within the school that would happen. And it was a pretty extensive training for them. But once they completed the hours of training, they would resolve various conflicts within the school. And it got to the point where the staff and principals administration really enjoyed it because they were like, we really don't have to focus on resolving these issues. The kids resolve it. So it never really makes it to our table, our desk, and we can worry about educational things. And it was very effective because when it was all youth centered and youth facilitators, things would come out in the process that wouldn't come out if adults were at the table. So it was really like this very cool tool and power to resolve stuff, and the adults really didn't have to get involved. And it got to the point where the students were so confident, they were like looking for conflicts. They'd hear people arguing in the hall, like, wait, what's going on? Let's go over to A17. And it was so like, wow, adults were just like, I don't believe this is happening. But you empowered people with a tool that is very powerful. And what I like about it is there's people with high education, high salaries, high titles that don't utilize these tools and don't understand it. So it gave these young people an advantage of like, we're even more powerful than them. So it's really cool because that's what we need to prepare our society and our next generation with is tools and power, because what comes with that is the confidence. And so they don't act fearfully, they act confidently. And so that's part of how I view restorative justice as well. We have police officers that are on some of our community boards. And I remember, and a lot of people look at me like, what? And even when I started the job, I noticed there were a few, and I was like, what? Like, how did this happen? But I learned quickly that this is a powerful tool for officers because they say themselves, we know we can't arrest our way out of these problems. We don't all enjoy using the guns and the taser. Some of us want to actually help people in other ways, but unfortunately, this is the training, this is the tools, this is all we have, and we try to make the best of it. And we see how that worked out. Not very good most of the time. So to have officers trained in how to resolve things without getting aggressive, without looking at someone as you're bad, and you're looking as a problem, and I have a tool that we can help solve it, it's powerful because we could really just change how our culture deals with problems, conflicts, crimes. So yeah, it's that powerful to me. It's like really a tool that I look at as like a superhero hat, like Batman. You said he has this belt with all these tools, and restorative justice is like this huge tool in the belt. And so that's kind of how I define it and view it. And I could, like I said, I get excited about this because like this is my lane that I work in, and I see it, and I also see, I had some pictures I like to utilize. I won't pull them up now, but I'll visualize this: a young person, most of the time of color, defense attorney next to them, and most of all our pictures are similar. You see the back of them, and you'll see a judge, you'll see the stenographer or the person that does the typing, and so I take a picture every time a young person graduates my program from the rear, for number one, because I don't want their face, being known, because it is like you just completed a program to wipe your record clean, so we don't need it out there that you were involved with something. So confidentiality is important. So, but it shows the back of the person, it shows the judge in the front, dismissing the charges. And every time we have one, there's usually no pictures in the courtroom, but this judge is on board, and she's so awesome. She allows it to. She says, "No, we'll allow pictures in the courtroom for this proceeding." And this is like not like any other proceeding. Someone's not getting put away. Someone's getting all charges dropped. They've worked their way through a program to repair the harm that they've done. And the judge always has something very powerful to share to encourage them as well. Says, "You keep doing what you're doing, and I'm proud of you." And you hear these things that you don't really hear in a normal setting. even the prosecutor, who's usually trying to point out everything wrong with you and, you know, painting a terrible picture of you, is on your behalf, stating all the things you've accomplished and stating how hard you've worked. And that's a powerful piece, because one of our graduates, I never forget, we were in the hallway, he's talking to his mom on the phone, and, you know, he's so excited. And she's like, yeah, how did it go? And the first thing he said, it was unexpected, because I'm thinking all these other grand things. And he goes, you know, that lady that really, like, he's talking about the prosecutor who's like cutting into me, she was on my side. She was bragging about me. And like that to him blew him away, because it was like, I don't believe what just happened. But again, when you have this tool, you're confident in this tool, in this superpower, these are the things that happen. And we haven't seen it all yet. We're going to see a lot more. There's so many ripple effects that this program and this tool causes. But that's one. And I'll just one more to kind of wrap it up. This morning, I was in contact with a woman who's a local business owner. She's about to open up a business in downtown Albany, and she reached out to our office on the internet because she read about our Clean Slate program, and she specifically asked, are there any candidates in our program that may be interested in working in this business? And she's very passionate about young people having a chance, and possibly young people who have made a mistake that she realized on her side of the tracks growing up would not have costed her future. So she realized she was advantaged to be able to be where she is, and she learned through her experience in life that, you know, others did not have that, and she's passionate about making sure that they have that. So when she found out about our program, she wanted to intentionally hire some individuals from our program. And so this morning I got her resumes from individuals who are actually in the same exact field as this business. It's like, where else does this happen? Mm-hmm. You know, where people look intentionally for young people who have already made a decision to turn their lives around and demonstrated it. Business owners to be a resource. Like, I want to be a part of your journey. I want to be a part of your story. And so, yeah, that's a part of it as well. So it's just many facets. As I said, I could probably take over the next hour or two of this session just talking about it. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Alisha.
Yeah, I think we all like just touched on like how that there's so many ways in which the restorative process can be used, and how that does, you know, create a space for change, right? Create a space for this cultural shift, right? This way of thinking, and to really understand each other. And I think that it's in how we communicate with each other, how we interact in society, and like this understanding of what the possibilities of the restorative process is, right? What restorative justice is. Like, once you know it, like, you can't ignore it. You know, I went through my days in prison seeing how the restorative process working, but like I didn't have any words for it, like I said before, right? And now that I do, right? And as within the restorative process of developing these avenues and creating the opportunities, whether it's in the DA's office, whether it's in the community, whether it's in a college, whether it does, you know, and creating these opportunities to get to know each other. Because the more and more, the stronger we build our community, the more and more we build trust with each other, the more and more we hold space for each other, we're less likely to harm the ones that we are hurt. We're less likely to harm the ones that we know, right? And so really emphasizing community, right? And building this community of, you know, like I was saying before, like where the store owner, you know, oh, okay, hey, oh, you're stealing this bread because you're hungry. Hey, I need somebody to clean the store when I close up, right? Like, and changing that simply because they're part of your community. because in theory, right, in theory, the idea of the court system is to hold people accountable, right? In theory, the idea of police officers is supposed to make the community safe, right? And we don't see that. We don't see that very often. We'll hear a positive story, you know, it'll come up on our feeds, and, you know, we'll read the positive story, we'll watch on the news, like we'll hear that positive story, but we hear more bad ones than good ones, right? And so opening up like these very different avenues to build community with each other, to build community with the next door neighbor, to build community with, you know, folks that, you know, just around. And so we can diminish what I think what you were saying before is the fact of like this idea of all these labels, right? And we develop them, we have this understanding of labels so we can identify with each other, right? It's different as a community member and I go talk to reentry organizations, and the difference between if I say I'm formerly incarcerated and the difference of the times that I don't is determined about the level of respect. If I'm talking to a reentry program of people who are formerly incarcerated and I don't say that I'm formerly incarcerated, I'm just another white lady talking about some program. If I do say I'm formerly incarcerated, it's like, oh, you know what I've been through. Right. Like, and the thing about the schools, right, with you know, with like it solves the problem, like it's students coming down, you know, it's students, you know, solving problems on their own, the same way that it was done within the prison system, and building community, and also in ways of how we look at power, right? How we look to authority figures and people in power for validation, right? We look at like they're the ones that like to say whether it's right or wrong, whether it's parental figures, whether it's professors, whether it's DAs, whether it's judges. It's dismantling the power, and not dismantling the power because they have the power to wield the decision, but the power to really be community, not because you have the power, but because it's care about the individual, less so about the system, and how we look at power and how we disseminate power within our practices of restorative justice. And I'll pass it to Anthony.
Thank you, Alisha. Yeah, I'm just, you know, I agree with everything that you all have shared, and in this additional reflection round, it's clear to me, right, that the importance of restorative justice as a tool, creating those spaces both in the community and the criminal justice system, so that people can find those opportunities to heal, as Alisha was saying. But I just keep coming back that we need to continue chipping away at the established mindsets of the way that things are resolved. Here in the organization that I work for, we represent people in a variety of settings, people who are facing eviction, people who are facing deportation, people who are right now in Rikers Island because they stole or allegedly stole medicine from a pharmacy. And, you know, there's so many systems across the board where either deliberately it was created so that communities have to experience these realities of being left marginalized or left in conditions of poverty. So many root causes to address. And I see in restorative justice the power for us to continue to come together, to mobilize, to build on those connections, and to push so that we can, you know, chip away those barriers that keep us from seeing that this is a shared reality that we have. And I also go back to what Diego was saying, because it does resonate with me about the obstacle of the integrity of restorative justice, and making sure that it's not diluted or just another phrase that is going to be used as a program, when in reality, people still have to overcome so many barriers to even get access to certain programs. And so those are things that I'm currently thinking about as I hear you all speak. So I'll pass it on to Diego.
Thank you, Anthony. So I was reflecting about the restart to justice in like a toll too. And I'm agreeing with Alisha and Anthony and David, when we can use restart to justice beyond the legal system or courts from in the community, or especially in the law and enforcement, like in the policy actuation. Here in Brazil, we have someone, cops, using the restart to justice to do circle process, but is an exception in the system. They try, but sometimes it's very, very hard. Like I said, in my last reflection, we have a big challenge to maintain the integrity for restart to justice, because when the cops, when the judge, or even me, the attorney, try do something with restart to justice, we need to think about how I will do this, how I will use this tool, and I will do, where I will do this, where is the money for this program continue helping the people. When the states come to this program, what happened here in Brazil? I can't say for North American, I just can't say for Brazil, okay? In Brazil, the states try co-opt and say, okay, the money is mine, so the program is mine. So now you will do what I want you to do. You will train who I understand is the perfect person to be a facilitator. You will do exactly things I want you to do. I will create norms for defining restart to justice. Can you imagine this, Anthony, David, and Alisha? A state defining what is restart to justice? Something so beautiful like restart to justice, who borns for the community, and states take for him and put out in the, for now, restart to justice is only circle process. All the other practice is not restart to justice, because my guys, my little friends, like circle process. Other guys who like conference, like other, I don't know, true and conciliation conference, they can be with us in these programs of a restart to justice. And this happened here in Brazil, in the legal system. If you try creating a space, expand space to train people in the community to resolve the conflicts, you will have so many problems with the judiciary, because they will try say for everyone, these people is not right, they are doing something wrong, because the good people is here in judiciary. We know how to train the people, they don't know. This is the power of the state. Is this power who oppression, make the oppression against the minority. Again, the minority can't access the tools. The tools. The people in the minority can access the judiciary to fight for the rights, and now when the states co-opt the restart justice, they can't access the system to resolve the problems in the restorative justice programs. So for me, this is the problem. When David said about the cops, I remember one history very important for me. about the young man who every time try do something wrong, and he was arrested 3 or 4 times, and the cops is very, very, very sad with this, and they have agreement. If we arrest him more time, this guy, we will kill him. And this little guy make something wrong again. But in the exactly time for kill this guy, unfortunately, it's a black young guy. Yes, and here in Brazil, we have so many George Floyds. Every day we kill one George Floyd in Brazil. Here we have this problem. It's very sad, but it's true. And when he will shot in the head with this guy, little guy, he take the hands and no, I will not do this. The other cops joke him. Why you do this? Are you afraid? You can't kill someone like him? And after weeks, this cop was invited to one circle process with this guy, this little guy. In this circle process, he tell for this little guy, you know, I will kill you, but I don't know why I didn't this. And the little guy answered, why you don't need do this? I want you do this with me. And the cops say, why you want this? Because if you kill me, I don't need dreaming with my mother again and wake up in the next morning without her. So when we listen, we learn. When we look for the people, we learn about the people. We started understand why the people have this action in the life. And I try teach this for my students in the law school. When the people come to the university, in our labs in law school, I ask for them, please don't take your pen, don't look for the paper, look in the eyes, listen, please, listen what this woman, what's the child, what this man wanna say for you. It's very important this human being understand he's important, even if it's just 1 minute in his life. It's not about big programs for me. It's not to have a big name of the restorative justice program of the best programs of Brazil. No, it's about what I can do in my little space in my life, how I can use my tools in my tools. Sorry, I said the wrong again, the word. My wife is correcting me here. It's tools. We need to use correctly the tools to have the chance to have a good results in the future. So I want to share with you this point. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Alisha. Thank you, Tamara, and the past talk piece.
Thank you, Diego. That was beautiful. We're starting to run out of time, so I don't want to cut into other sections, but I just want to say thank you all. Your insights, your experiences, I love listening to them. I love learning from everyone today, and really thank you. I've really enjoyed my time with you all today. And I'll pass it to Angel.
Thank you, and good luck with your finals, by the way.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, y'all, we're gonna take a 26-minute break, so till 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern, and then we'll come back. So get coffee, go for a walk, get food, and we'll circle back. And thank you to the Roundtable panelists. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.